Good evening and welcome to Rally 2012. I'm Drexel Gilbert with WSRE TV.
And I'm Sandra Averhart with WUWF Public Media.
This is the first of 2 nights of election coverage on WSRE TV, PBS for the Gulf Coast.
Rally 2012 allows you the opportunity to meet candidates in races from Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa counties, as well as the candidates for U.S. Congress District 1.
Now, many of you joined us for the primary election edition of Rally 2012 in July. That election did decide a majority of local races, but certainly not all of them. Here's a preview of the races you will be seeing on the general election edition of Rally.
We will begin this evening with the contest for U.S. Congress District 1. We will then move to the Escambia County races for sheriff, property appraiser, tax collector, and superintendent of schools.
Tomorrow night, we will spotlight the races for Okaloosa County Commission District 1, Santa Rosa County Sheriff, Santa Rosa County School Board District 4, Escambia County Commission Districts 1, 3, and 5, and ECUA District 1. The questions for the candidates this evening have been provided to us by the League of Women Voters, Pensacola Bay Area, and also the Okaloosa County League of Women Voters.
The candidates have not seen the questions. They will have 45 seconds to respond. Following the question and answer session, each candidate will have an additional 45 seconds to deliver a closing statement.
Now it is time to get started with the questions for the candidates, and we are going to begin with the race for U.S. Congress District 1. You will hear from the Republican, Democratic, and Libertarian candidates in this race.
Our candidates are seated in alphabetical order, and the first candidate we will introduce to you tonight is Jim Bryan. He is the Democratic challenger in this race. Kaylin Fretz is the Libertarian challenger in the race for U.S. Congress District 1. And the Republican on the ballot is incumbent Jeff Miller.
And gentlemen, we welcome you to Rally 2012, and it is time to get started with the question and answers, and we are going to begin alphabetically with you, Mr. Bryan. Question number 1. The Super PAC ads with unidentified sponsors have renewed calls for legislation such as the Disclosure Act requiring that sponsors of these ads be disclosed in the interest of transparency. What is your position on this issue? And you have 45 seconds, sir.
Well, first of all, my position is campaign finance reform. Now, what I did in my campaign was I made a vow that I would run my campaign for $5,000 or under, and I succeeded to do this. And the reason I did that is to make a statement. It doesn't take $20 million to get a candidate in office. You know, a candidate should run on his record. He should run on what he's done in the past, and so the voters can get to know him. All this money and all these races, I think the last count was $2 billion for these races altogether. $2 billion. And here I am, a successful candidate for U.S. Congress. I wore out 2 pairs of shoes to get my petitions to run. It cost me $0 to file.
All right, thank you very much for your answer. And we move now to you, Mr. Fretz. And again, the question, the Super PAC ads with unidentified sponsors have renewed calls for legislation such as the Disclosure Act, requiring that sponsors of these ads be disclosed in the interest of transparency. Sir, what is your position on this issue?
Well, it's certainly a tricky issue, but it really comes down to freedom of speech. In this country, we obviously recognize freedom of speech as the number one of the most important issues. In fact, it's the First Amendment. And so we have freedom of speech to say whatever we want, and we don't have to, explain why we want to say it. And we have the freedom to say these things anonymously. So as far as donations to candidates, absolutely should be required to be disclosed. But when we're talking about freedom of speech from a third party or an anonymous source, I don't believe that they should always be required to disclose.
All right, thank you. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Miller. Would you like for me to repeat the question to you as well?
No.
Okay, and your position on the issue of the calls for that these ads be disclosed in the interest of transparency?
Well, I think they should. I think disclosure is important. I think immediate disclosure is what's critical. We have no idea of where the money's coming from. It can be one individual that's funding a super PAC. In the past, unions have had an upper hand by forcing their membership to be able to put money into PACs or political groups to buy advertising. And now all of a sudden we have these new super PACs that are coming into areas where you could actually affect a congressional race with money coming from one particular state, one particular city. And so with the advent of electronic filing and disclosure, I think that immediate disclosure and disclosure of everybody that contributes is the thing that folks are looking for the most.
All right, thank you.
All right, our next question will go to Mr. Fretz first. And the question is, what is your opinion of the regulations governing banks and other financial institutions that have been put in place to prevent future economic crises?
Well, that's a great question. Unfortunately, the regulation governing whether a commercial bank, in other words, a bank that you and I would use to store our deposits, and a investment bank, we have allowed those banks to merge together, and unfortunately that has created a huge part of the banking collapse and the banking crisis that we faced that created the TARP bailout, $700 billion and counting. And so I certainly believe in a truly free market, we wouldn't necessarily need some of these regulations, but we unfortunately do not have a truly free market. We have a quasi-free market. And in our current system, we need to restore these regulations that divide the investment and commercial banks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. It'll next go to you. What is your opinion of the regulations governing banks and other financial institutions that have been put in place to prevent future economic crises?
Well, I voted against Dodd-Frank, and given the opportunity, I would vote to repeal it. I think over-regulation by Washington and the regulators there have in fact stifled growth here in the United States. You have small community banks that are spending millions and millions of dollars to comply with new regulations that didn't need to be passed. Now, folks will say we needed to tighten things up. Laws were already in place. What we had was regulators that weren't doing their job, that should have been doing proper oversight, and to be very honest, a Congress that had not been taking its role as oversight as well either. So when the Democrats controlled both houses and the White House, they forced Dodd-Frank on the American people.
All right, thank you. And finally to Mr. Bryan, this question to you. Do you need me to repeat it, sir?
No.
All right.
You know, in 1937, we had a law put in place called Glass-Steagall. Glass-Steagall prevented, and it also put up a firewall in the banking industry and finance. This firewall was stripped out in 1999 by a representative named Phil Graham. It was snuck into a bill and it was destroyed. We lost our firewall in 1999. This helped create the current crisis that we faced with the collapse of our financial institutions in banking, mortgage, subprimes. And that's what we have to look at. We have to have these regulations. I believe in bringing back Glass-Steagall.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, and it's time now for the third question in this round of questions for our candidates, and this time we will begin with you, Mr. Miller. What actions, if any, do you recommend to lessen human impact on the climate changes we have been seeing in recent years?
Well, first of all, I think there's been an extreme overreaction to climate change. There has been a cyclical effect over the centuries and over actually thousands of years. We have been able to monitor them for many, many years. And to say that, you know, we have to do so many things in order to stop climate change. It used to be global warming. Now all of a sudden the environmentalists have come out and called it something new because the temperature goes up, it goes down. Washington has spent too much time and is putting too much pressure to spend money by people in the civilian community, just regular people, in order to stop something that many scientists say doesn't exist.
All right, thank you, sir. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Bryan. And the question again is, what action, if any, do you recommend to lessen human impact on climate changes that we've seen in recent years?
You know, I lived in Arizona for 10 years. And I went to the airport one day to catch a flight, and all flights were canceled. The heat dome over Phoenix raised the temperature to 122 degrees. The airplanes were not rated above 120, so they closed the airport. You know, if we look at the facts, and too many times people put supposition, climate change has really been underreported. Now, it's, you know, we have to take the facts as they're presented. You know, right now the Soviet Union is looking to explore the Arctic for oil deposits because the ice packs are breaking up and they can get ships in there now. The Antarctic has the same situation.
All right.
And we have to take this very serious.
All right, thank you, sir. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Fretz. Would you like for me to repeat it for you?
No, that's all right.
All right.
I think obviously our climate does change. We don't live in a picture. So the term climate change is a very broad topic. However, we have seen over the decades the use of climate change, global warming, global cooling, and it's always something new. The scientists really never seem to pin down exactly what the issue is. And I think really what we need to do is be very careful, because there are a lot of people who will make a lot of money if things like the climate change legislation, cap and trade, issues like this are put into our government, just like any other industry. There are always lobbyists. We need to keep the government out and let the market make these choices.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, our next question will go to Mr. Bryan first. And the question is, the President has announced a timetable for withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan. What are your views on this timetable?
Well, my views were the Iraq War, for instance, as far as I was concerned, it shouldn't have never happened. Afghanistan, that's where the focus should have been put on years ago for what was at hand from 9/11. The timetable is now. If I had anything to do with it, I would start bringing American troops, all American troops, out immediately. I wouldn't wait on a timetable. You know, I'm a combat veteran. I know what combat does, and I know what the loss and maiming of human life can be, especially when you look at our young warriors at 18, 19 years old. Hey, war is a bloody business.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Fretz, this question to you next. The President has announced a timetable for withdrawal of troops, combat troops from Afghanistan. What are your views on this timetable?
Well, our mission in the Middle East was to capture and kill those who were responsible for 9/11. We have killed Osama bin Laden. I should say that the Navy SEALs killed Osama bin Laden. Of course, our President did not. But I would say our mission is accomplished over there. We have killed the enemy. I believe it's time to bring our troops home, and time to make sure that we protect our own borders here at home. That is the #1 mission of our troops, is to protect our borders, to protect our United States. And I think we need to make sure that they are rested and prepared should another imminent attack or threat occur on these shores.
All right, thank you. And finally to you, Mr. Miller, what are your views on the timetable for withdrawal of combat troops from Afghanistan?
Well, and I think it's very important that you draw a clear distinction between combat troops and troops. The President is saying right now that all troops are coming home, and the fact that is not the case. But I think America is ready to bring their sons and their daughters home. It has been a long war. But what I don't agree with is what the President did in actually showing his hand in regards to the timetable of bringing our troops home. What the enemy will do is go into a mode where they wait for us to be ready to return back to the United States. Look for that soft underbelly, if you will, and begin to attack our folks as they return back to the United States. The last thing we need to do is to show exactly when we're coming home.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. And now we move to question number 5. And again, a reminder that these questions are provided to us this evening and for the candidates by the League of Women Voters, Pensacola Bay Area and Okaloosa County. And this time we will start with you, Mr. Fretz. What changes to the current Social Security system would you support to assure that it continues to provide the retirement, survivor, and disability benefits that it provides now?
Well, I think it's time that we be honest about programs like Social Security. We've had politicians for years and years tell us that Social Security will be there, don't worry, there's nothing to worry about. And the unfortunate truth is Social Security was raided as soon as it began. Congress took all the money out, spent it on other things, and put an IOU in the account. And we have to be honest and tell people that Social Security and programs like it are not on the right path right now, and we're going to have to start making some tough decisions. We're going to have to start letting people opt out of these kind of systems and go back to the voluntary systems, families taking care of each other, because our current budget, our current economic situation is unsustainable, so it's time to make a change.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fretz. And the question posed now to you, Mr. Miller, what changes to the current Social Security system would you support to assure that it continues to provide the retirement, survivor, and disability benefits that it provides now?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to remember that when Social Security was first established, it was never supposed to be an entire retirement for somebody. It was supposed to be a supplement. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people today that are requiring their Social Security to live off of, and so it's important that we make sure that it's there for future generations. And that's why we've done some things in the House of Representatives. We've talked about trying not only just to lengthen the life of Social Security and Medicare, but we probably are going to have to look at the retirement age. If we were just to raise the retirement age by a couple of years, I think it would go a long way to stabilizing Social Security for many years to come, and then also giving people the opportunity to invest their own dollars so that they get a greater return at the end.
All right. And then the question now goes to you, Mr. Bryan, and I will pose it to you. What changes to the current Social Security system would you support to assure that it continues to provide the retirement, survivor, and disability benefits that it provides now?
I would need about 3 hours to answer this question, but I'll try to make it quick. This little disc with Medicare costs $300. There's no bid. The VA pays $56 for this same disc. My calculations and the calculations from the GAO says $150 billion could be saved in Medicare alone by going to competitive bidding in the drug market, just like the VA does. Now, Congress has raided the Social Security 2 times. The first time with the drug bill, and prior to that, pulling out the funds that we had in it to start with. It could stay solvent if Congress would keep their hands off of it.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Fretz, you did raise your hand, and that is an indication that you have a rebuttal. And just so we can set the rules out so that the viewers understand, each candidate is allowed 1 rebuttal per question if that's something that they choose to do, and they have 45 seconds to do that. So, Mr. Fretz, you have 30 seconds to do that, sir.
I would just say that I find it interesting that the congressman says that we now need to look at raising the retirement age, because in the town hall meeting just in the past term, the congressman stated that we would not need to raise the retirement age. So I agree with his point. We certainly do need to look at that. And also, when we cut the Social Security tax, which I'm all for cutting taxes, we also need to realize that we may need to cut the spending as a part of that. They go hand in hand.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Miller, you raised your hand, so you would like to rebut as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that we are going to have to look at some things like raising the retirement age, allowing people to go outside of the system, having the opportunity to opt out a portion or all in order to keep the Social Security system solvent.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Bryan has raised his hand as well. Sir, you have 30 seconds.
I'm on Social Security. I'm on Medicare. Keep your hands off of my Social Security, and don't come up telling me you want a voucher for my grandmother and my mother. Let's leave the system like it was put in place and keep your hands off of it so it can be funded.
All right, thank you, sir. And that brings us now to just about 20 minutes into tonight's rally program. And while we do have more questions for the congressional candidates, we are going to take a brief pause, allow everyone to take a breath.
When we come back, we will continue with questions for these candidates. But races for political positions are not the only items that will be on the ballot. Florida voters will also be asked to make decisions about 11 amendments to the state constitution.
Now, throughout the evening, we are going to be giving you information on those amendments and information where you can go for specific details on each amendment so that you are able to read them ahead of time and make informed decisions at the polls.
Your first look at the amendments is coming up. You're watching Rally 2012 on WSRE TV.
There is nothing more important to our democratic process than having an informed electorate voting on Election Day. Good evening. I'm Ed Meadows, President of Pensacola State College, thanking you for tuning into Rally 2012, a joint presentation of the League of Women Voters, WSRE TV, and Pensacola State College. Rally allows you the opportunity to watch and listen as this election year slate of candidates answer the tough questions concerning the needs of our community and state. WSRE, a service of Pensacola State College, is proud to bring this program to you as a public service, and as always, we invite your comments and suggestions about how we can further fulfill our community obligations. Let's all remember the importance of participating in the governance process by voting in this upcoming election.
I'm Rosemary Hayes Thomas, co-president of the League of Women Voters of the Pensacola Bay Area. On our November 6th ballot, there are 11 amendments to our state constitution, all placed on the ballot by the state legislature rather than by citizen initiative. A 60% margin is required for passage. 4 proposed amendments, if passed, will increase property tax exemptions for specific groups of people. The Collins Center for Public Policy estimates that if all 4 of these amendments pass, it would result in a reduction of revenue to schools and local governments of more than $1 billion over the first 3 years. Amendment 2 deals with veterans disabled as a result of combat injury, who now receive a tax exemption if a current Florida resident, 65 or older, honorably discharged, and a resident of Florida when they entered the military. This amendment, if passed, would extend this benefit to others who were not Florida residents at the time they entered the service, but reside here now. Amendment 9 would put into the Constitution an existing full property tax exemption that now applies under Florida law to the surviving spouse of a Florida resident killed on active military duty. This amendment would expand this exemption to survivors of full-time, part-time, or volunteer first responders. Amendment 11 would allow cities and counties to pass a full homestead property tax exemption for seniors 65 or older who have lived in their home for 25 years or more if their household income is less than $27,030 and the home's market value is below $250,000. Amendment 4 would allow the legislature to prohibit increases in property taxes when market values are declining. It would also cut from 10% to 5% the possible rate of increase in assessments for some non-homesteaded properties. Amendment 4 gives new homeowners a second homestead tax exemption for a 5-year period if they have not owned a home in Florida in the last 3 years. For more detailed nonpartisan information about the constitutional amendments and the merit retention process, please download the Florida League's Voter Guide. Just log on to thefloridavoter.org, the website for the League of Women Voters of Florida. Scroll down to the 2012 Voter Guide section and click on Download. In a few moments, the guide will appear on your computer screen. When you scroll down to the Amendments section, you will see a synopsis of each amendment plus an explanation of what a vote of yes or no would mean. We hope you will find this information useful as you prepare to vote.
And welcome back to Rally 2012 on WSRE TV. I'm Drexel Gilbert, along with Sandra Averhart, and we are ready to continue now with questions for the candidates who are vying for the U.S. congressional seat, Florida's District 1.
We remind you that the questions for this race were prepared as a joint effort by the Pensacola Bay Area and Okaloosa County League of Women Voters. And as we get back to the questions, Mr. Miller, we'll begin with you first. Our next question, what should be the federal government's role, if any, to address environmental concerns, including pollution and seismic activity resulting from hydrofracking?
Well, I think that the federal government needs to stop getting involved in some of the exploration issues that are forefront today for our natural resources, especially as it relates to fracking. It is a new technology that exists out there, and there are many, in fact, untold amounts that can be extracted from the earth. But unfortunately, we now have individuals that are putting political pressure in particular onto their elected officials, in particular those in the Pennsylvania area, and saying that it does create seismic issues. There is no evidence of that. Fracking needs to continue if we're going to become sufficient.
All right, thank you. It'll next go, this question, to Mr. Bryan. 45 seconds for your response. What should the federal government's role, if any, be to address environmental concerns, including pollution and seismic activity resulting from hydrofracking?
Okay, when the fracking originally started, the government did fund the industry in developing fracking techniques. Of course, we know in Texas and some of the other places we've had aftershocks that have been caused from fracking. We know this is a fact. The technology is still new, but you know, we need natural gas as a stepping stone to our energy independence. And you know, we've got to do it clean. Of course, we know about the Gulf oil spill. We know about the efforts in the cleanup. We also know that our coast here in the Panhandle has to be protected. The Eglin Air Force Base has to be protected. So all of these are factors when we look at this area, but the government does have a major role.
Bryan. Thank you. And to Mr. Fretz, this question to you. What should be the federal government's role, if any, to address environmental concerns, including pollution and seismic activity resulting from fracking, hydrofracking?
Well, as to pollution in general, I think the federal government does have a role when we talk about things like federal waters, things that local governments and state governments can't control. But in general, I would certainly like to see state and local governments have control of these issues. I think decisions are best made close to home. I think a lot of the times when the closer things get to D.C., the less accountability we have and the more opportunity for, like I mentioned earlier, people with money in their pockets to try to step in and get involved and sway the market one way or the other. But we also, for things like the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, have to remember that companies like BP ought to be held accountable and pay for every last cent.
All right, thank you.
All right, and it is on now to question number 7, and this time we will begin with you, Mr. Bryan. What changes in foreign policy would you support to reduce or increase our military involvement in other countries?
The current, I agree with the current administration, and I agree with Colin Powell about our current foreign affairs. I think Secretary Clinton is doing an excellent job, and I think across the world, we as a nation, we have to show strength. We know the issues in Syria, Jordan, Pakistan, all of these countries, but you have to look at the favorability rating that America does carry, and that is part of our strength, is our foreign policy. And, you know, people talk about going to war in Iran. Hey, our policies today can prevent that.
Thank you so much. Mr. Fretz, now this question goes to you. What changes in foreign policy would you support to reduce or increase our military involvement in other countries?
Well, I stand with the wisdom of the founding fathers on issues like this, who talked about, people like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington talked about having, trying to have friendly relations with as many nations as possible, but entangling alliances with none. In other words, let's look out for ourselves and, like I mentioned earlier, protect our own borders and make sure we have security here at home. The idea of speak softly and carry a big stick. The nations around the world know what the United States is capable of, and when groups try to attack the United States, we will make our force known, but in other situations, let other countries determine their own course, and we'll determine ours here at home.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fretz. And to you now, Mr. Miller, what changes in foreign policy would you support to reduce or increase our military involvement in other countries?
First of all, for the last 4 years, our foreign policy has been abysmal. We see the Middle East in flames. We have 4 Americans that were murdered in Benghazi by Islamic extremists. We have a White House now that is trying to cover that up, which I think is very unfortunate. A Congress that is trying to get to the bottom of it, and unfortunately has been called political in what we're trying to do in a bipartisan way. I think the thing that most folks understand around the world is strength. Unfortunately, from a national perspective, our national debt is in a crisis situation as it comes to being able to fund our military. And we do have to continue to be the strongest military in the world, not just by 1 or 2 times, but many more times.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. And Mr. Fretz, you have raised your hand. You have a rebuttal statement. You have 30 seconds.
Yes, I also find it interesting that the congressman raises the issue of the national debt. He's very much correct on that. $16 trillion is completely unsustainable. However, the current congressman, Jeff Miller, has voted for over $5 trillion of that debt since he took office in 2001. And that's an average of over $1 trillion per term. So, you know, if you go in and decide to re-elect Congressman Miller, you'll have probably at least one trillion more in debt. $2 trillion was last year, unfortunately. So.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Miller, you have a statement, a rebuttal statement now, and you have 30 seconds, sir.
I'm the most conservative member of the United States Congress. Many polls will show that. But I believe that our country has to pay its bills as well. We had to fund our wars in both Iraq and Afghanistan, and so there has been a need to fund with debt. We now are looking at ways, in the House in particular, everything is pay-go. The Democrats tried to say that's the way it was for the past years. They did it with fuzzy math and numbers. We don't do it that way anymore.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller.
All right, our next question will go first to Mr. Fretz, and the question is, what specific actions would you advocate for ending the congressional gridlock that has prevented the resolution of many critical issues facing the nation?
Vote them all out, every single one. Start right here in the 1st District. Vote in people like myself who actually have the American people and the people of the Panhandle in mind, who want to work on solutions for reducing the size of government, getting the government out of our lives. One of the things I want to do is sunset federal laws after maybe 10 years or so. Start getting a lot of these federal laws off the books, because we all know that red tape is weighing this country down, and we can no longer sustain it. As to the congressman's point that we have to pay our bills, well, it's kind of dangerous when you're paying all those bills on the credit card that you owe to China. So.
All right, this question will go to Mr. Miller. And what specific actions would you advocate for ending the congressional gridlock that has prevented the resolution of many critical issues facing the nation?
If I had my way, it would be with a Republican Senate and a Republican president. I will tell you that the Senate has been the problem for the last several years. Harry Reid and his leadership, the Democrats in the Senate, have chosen to do absolutely nothing, which includes the one thing that we are constitutionally required to do, and that's to pass a budget. They haven't done it for almost 4 years now. The House of Representatives has sent bill after bill over to the Senate. If they would just pass a piece of legislation, even if it was a liberal piece of legislation, and allow us to come together in a conference, we would be able to solve a lot of the problems. But unfortunately, the Democrats in the Senate have chosen not to do that.
All right, and this question will finally go to Mr. Bryan. And Mr. Bryan, what specific actions would you advocate for ending the congressional gridlock?
You know, I spent 20 years in the military, and my focus those 20 years was to serve my nation, to serve a country. Too many people now in politics serve a party. And when you serve a party, you fail to serve half of the country, whether it be Democrat or Republican. My solutions are very simple. You know, I could take my paratroopers, 140 of them, with teaspoons and move a mountain. I see no paratroopers, or very few paratroopers, in the U.S. Congress. With an approval rating of 9%, I think the Black Plague had an approval of 13%. My goodness, you've got to work together for the good of the nation. The nation comes first.
Thank you, sir. And now we move on to our next question, and this question we will begin with Mr. Miller this time. What is at the top of your list of proposed changes in the income tax code that would help trim the nation's budget deficit? And again, we start with you, Mr. Miller.
I think the most important thing is to get everybody with some skin in the game, if you will. We've got so many people that don't pay any income tax at all. Many of those individuals are receiving a lot of the government funds in the program, so you have the top percentage paying a lot of their income to support the bottom groups. There are people out there that the government can help, and I understand that. But I think the easiest way is to streamline the system either through a flat tax or a fair tax. I've been a co-sponsor of the fair tax since I got to Congress. I think it's something that we seriously need to look at. There are loopholes and deductions that are out there today that have gotten placed into law specifically because lobbyists helped move them through. Those need to be done away with.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Bryan, would you like for me to repeat the question for you, sir?
No, that's fine. You know, there's so many loopholes in the tax law. There's a small island in the Virgin Islands that houses a building about as big as this room. There's 6,500 corporations have their headquarters there in a little bitty box where they get their mail. That's their corporate headquarters. 6,500 of American companies shafting Uncle Sam for taxes. Another thing, too, if you bring in and push your manufacturing base and get our jobs back to the United States, you're going to raise revenue through taxing. So one of my big issues is wages.
All right, thank you, sir. And Mr. Fretz, would you like for me to repeat the question for you, sir?
No, I don't believe in streamlining the income tax system that we have. I believe in completely eliminating it and getting the IRS out of our lives once and for all. I think there's a big difference between saying that you'll vote for a fair tax bill and being willing to be a vocal advocate for a fair tax bill, something that everyone can see every time they buy something. And let's really push this, this conversation out into the national, on the floor of the national scene. You know, currently we have just a system that really doesn't work for the best of anybody except for the rich who can hire somebody who can find these loopholes and can you know, only pay 10 or 15% while we're paying 30, 40, 50%.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Bryan did raise his hand, and that indicates that he has a rebuttal statement. Mr. Bryan, you have 30 seconds.
There's a small company, actually a pretty big company, named Sensata Technologies. Yesterday, 13 people were arrested. This company is closing even though they had a $471 million profit in their third quarter. They're going to China. That's a lot of our tax base right there. This is owned by Bain Capital, who has 51% in the holdings.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, we have one final question for our candidates for U.S. Congress District 1 this evening, and it'll go to Mr. Bryan first. Leaders on both sides of the aisle have expressed great concern over Iran's nuclear activities and have advocated an international response that goes well beyond sanctions if Iran's activities cross some identified line. What is your assessment of this potentially explosive situation, Mr. Bryan?
We cannot allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. One of my jobs in the military, I was a tactical nuclear weapons expert with a top secret clearance. So I had a chance to see a little bit about what goes on with nuclear weapons. We can't allow that. The United States does have to draw a line in the sand with Israel to prevent this from happening. I don't promote war. I've been to war before. Sanctions is our first alternative. Heavy international sanctions.
All right, thank you. The question to Mr. Fretz, your assessment of the potentially explosive situation over Iran's nuclear activities.
Well, I think we have to be honest about the terminology. Sanctions are an act of war. just like an embargo, just like anything else that we decide to do to a country. It is an act of war. And so if we are willing to start with that first step towards war, we need to make sure that we're going to be ready to finish the job and not just go in there and occupy their country for 10 years or 20 years or however long. But what I would say is, let's allow Israel, let's stop pulling Israel around and telling them what to do with their own military. Let's allow them to decide these things for themselves. We know that Israel has a very capable military, much more capable than a country like Iran. And if they want to go in and finish the job, good for them.
All right, and Mr. Miller, your response.
We cannot allow Iran to become nuclear capable with a weapon. Israel, the United States, and others have spent untold amounts of money trying to make sure that they have the proper intelligence to know exactly what's going on in Iran. Of course, it's very difficult. Israel has every right to be able to defend themselves. We have no right to tell them what they can and what they cannot do. But if Israel goes, we must go. I think what's important is that we don't allow them to get to the point where they have the capability in order to launch or use a nuclear weapon against Israel or anybody else, because Iran with nuclear capabilities is not something the world needs.
All right, thank you. And that concludes the questions for the candidates for U.S. Congress District 1.
Now each candidate will have 45 seconds to make a closing statement. Mr. Bryan, you began the last round of questions, so our policy here is we continue moving down the line. So Mr. Fretz, we will begin closing statements with you. And again, you have 45 seconds.
Well, I decided to run for Congress last year because I've seen the path that this country's on, and I know it's not the right one. I plan to have children someday, maybe in the near future, and I want them to be born into a nation as beautiful and with as many freedoms as I was blessed to be born into. And I want to make sure that that's a possibility. Our current Congressman Miller, over the past 11 years has voted for more than $5 trillion in new debt. He's voted for legislation like the NDAA, which he claims does not allow American citizens to be detained, but Senator McCain and Graham said that it does. We need to get Congress, get the government out of our lives, and go back to freedom.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fretz. And now to you, Mr. Miller.
I appreciate the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum tonight in WSRE. Thank you for the opportunity to look at each of the candidates and what they stand for. I want to thank the voters of the 1st Congressional District for allowing me to serve you in the United States Congress. And what we have now is a president and a Senate in particular that wants to continue to overtax and overregulate you. That's certainly not something that the Founding Fathers intended. Washington needs to be as far away from us as we can possibly be. States need to control what goes on in our own states. I believe that government is best when it's closest to the people. We've had an opportunity to have some successes over the last several years, and I would appreciate the opportunity to serve you again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. And to you, Mr. Bryan, your closing statement in 45 seconds, sir.
Well, my focus is different than these two gentlemen. Once again, I'd like to thank you for having me. My focus is jobs, the economy, and manufacturing. Believe it or not, the Panhandle is the perfect setup for manufacturing. We have I-10, we have 3 ports, we have the Intercoastal Waterway, we have CSX Rail. It's ideal to bring in manufacturing. When you bring in manufacturing, you bring in jobs and hire skilled labor. I have 3 kids, okay? And the reason I'm running for Congress is because of them. Plus, I have skin in the game. I've served, and my focus is to serve this nation, not serve a party.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bryan, and thank you, gentlemen. You're watching Rally 2012 on WSRE TV.
We have a lot more to come tonight, including several local races and more information on the constitutional amendments that are on the ballot.
Right now, a look at the races still ahead this evening.
Thanks for watching this year's rally event on WSRE TV. I'm Rosemary Hayes Thomas. Dr. Paula Montgomery and I serve as co-presidents of the League of Women Voters of the Pensacola Bay Area. For over 20 years, the leagues here and in Okaloosa County have provided questions for events like tonight's forum as a service to our local communities. Our democracy is based on active participation by informed citizens, and voting is an important way to participate. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan, which means we don't support or oppose parties or candidates. This rally is one way for us to make accurate and nonpartisan information available to voters. You can also contact us for explanations of the amendments, merit retention of judges, and other ballot issues. We invite women and men to attend our public events or to join us as members of the League. Please see our website for more information or to contact us. And please, remember to be an informed voter this year.
There are 3 ways to cast a ballot in Okaloosa County: by mail, early voting, or at your precinct on Election Day. To vote by mail, contact the Okaloosa County Supervisor of Elections office. You can write, phone, fax, email, or log on to their website. Ballots must reach the Supervisor of Elections offices by 7 p.m. on Election Day. Early voting takes place from Saturday, October 27th through Saturday, November 3rd at the 4 locations listed on your screen. Hours for early voting are 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. On the day of the general election, Tuesday, November 6th, voting takes place at your polling location from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. You must vote in the precinct in which you live and are registered. Make sure you take along a photo and a signature ID with you. And welcome back to Rally 2012 as we count down to the Florida election, which is coming up in 12 days on November 6th.
Tonight, candidates for several races are in the WSRE studios answering questions provided by the League of Women Voters. And next up this evening is the race for Escambia County Sheriff. There are 2 candidates in this race, the Republican incumbent and a write-in candidate. Again, we introduce them in alphabetical order. First is Republican incumbent David Morgan. And seated next to him in alphabetical order is challenger write-in candidate Mindy Lynn Perret.
And welcome to both of you this evening. And we are going to begin the questions with you, Mr. Morgan. For question number 1, what steps are needed to address the gun violence in Escambia County?
We're taking a multifaceted approach to the gun violence in Escambia County. Some very basic procedures. We believe that 90% of our problems begin in the home, believe it or not. We have poor parenting in our country, and this has been a generational thing. We also have a widespread acceptance of violence throughout our culture, through television and the movies. So it's a multifaceted approach. And then the enforcement into this, of course, is where we have bonded with the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms folks, the PPD, Santa Rosa Sheriff's Department also, where we have a multi-jurisdictional task force where we're responding collaterally to guns involved in crime in Escambia County. To date, we've made over 80 arrests with a task force that's only been in being about 60 days.
All right, thank you, sir. And Ms. Perret, the question to you, what steps are needed to address the gun violence in Escambia County?
I believe, as many people do, that we need our law enforcement officers to actually practice enforcing the law instead of going out and supporting midnight basketball leagues and different charitable type events. The Escambia County Sheriff's Department's prime directive should be to enforce the laws of the state of Florida and to hold everybody accountable.
All right, thank you. Our next question will go to Ms. Perret first. Many incarcerated individuals are non-violent drug offenders. What kind of drug program would you suggest in place of incarceration for these individuals?
I don't have any suggestions for a drug program. My training has been in law enforcement.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Morgan, that question to you.
We work very closely with Lakeview Center, the Friary, many agencies, of course, that are outside the purview of the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. We also have a very robust work release program that is administered by the Escambia County Board of County Commissioners. Any nonviolent offenders, we work with the court system. We track them into the appropriate rehabilitative programs. especially if they're first-time offenders. Why? Because it's more appropriate they be tracked into rehabilitative efforts instead of the criminal justice system. Unfortunately, we mark a lot of people, especially young people, early on in their lives as career criminals. And so, again, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Thanks.
All right, and on now to question number 3, and we begin with you, Mr. Morgan. After a neighborhood goes through a clean sweep program, what would you recommend as follow-up procedures for the neighborhood?
Actually, we have instituted follow-up procedures, both in conjunction with code enforcement and the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. We return to that neighborhood within 60 days to, number one, ensure that the code enforcement citations that have been issued are followed up on, and we also follow up with the state probation and parole if there's any issuance with the sexual predators that have registered at specific addresses. You know, do we need to return and effect arrest? So there's follow-up, and then usually they're on a schedule for approximately 1 year. We'll be returning to that neighborhood to ensure that they are still in compliance. Good law enforcement is based upon consistency. You can't, as they did in Operation Brownsville back in 2007, sweep to a neighborhood once and then never return. Consistency is the key.
All right, thank you, sir. And Ms. Paray, the question now to you. What would you recommend as follow-up procedures in a neighborhood after that neighborhood goes through a clean sweep?
The follow-up procedures that have been instituted by the Sheriff's Department thus far have not been successful. I would suggest that we revamp that process. Just less than a month after a clean sweep in Mayfair, there were, several shootings, one of which there was an automatic assault weapon fired. These instances were not even reported to the general public, but the people who live in the neighborhood know about it. I would like to see a little bit different approach taken.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Morgan, you raised your hand, and that indicates that you have a rebuttal statement. You have 30 seconds, sir.
Ms. Paray's information is dated. We have a 50% drop in homicides in Escambia County. Crimes against the person, the stats we ran this month, are down almost 19%. And so our clean sweep operations and the explosion of our neighborhood watch programs, to include Mayfair, we have approximately 100 active neighborhood watches in Escambia County. So those things that we have sown are now bearing fruit.
Thank you, sir.
All right, and Ms. Paray, you'll get this next question or issue. Please give us your opinion of the movement to privatize jails and prisons in the state.
I think that the jails and the prisons should stay under the enforcement of the local sheriffs and the states. I don't agree with a privatized prison industry whatsoever.
All right, now Mr. Morgan, to you, your opinion of the movement to privatize jails and prisons in the state.
I've always been adamantly opposed to the privatization of incarceration. There are certain things that are inherent in a government and responsibilities of a government, and that is when we incarcerate individuals, we're responsible for their health, morale, and welfare, even though they are criminals that have been incarcerated. And I challenge anyone to find me a privatized jail system anywhere in the United States that has proven to be successful in the long term. In the first 3 to 5 years, they're hugely successful. At the 5 to 7 year point, they begin to lose money, and unfortunately, they become subsidized by the local taxpayers. So that's one of the reasons why I'm adamantly opposed to privatization.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. And now to question number 5. What action would you suggest that the sheriff take to resolve the budget dispute with the Escambia County Commission? And we will begin this time with you, Mr. Morgan.
We, of course, absorbed a tremendous amount of the COPS grant for this budget year. My approach is, again, I'm in charge of public safety. And before we escrow money in Escambia County, at this case $1.2 million, we must fulfill all of our public safety needs, public education, and again, the general welfare of our community. And so we were adamantly opposed to our budget being reduced by the $353,000 because we had previously had an agreement with the County Commission that we would absorb the COPS grant with a slight increase of that so we could maintain our officers. Public safety is number one. People do not move to a community if, again, crime is rampant and out of control, just like they won't move here if we have poor schools or there isn't any economic development. So public safety must be in the forefront before we fund any other thing within our community.
All right, and the question now to you, Ms. Paray. What action would you suggest the sheriff take to resolve the budget dispute with the Escambia County Commission?
I believe the sheriff should have been a little proactive in that event there. I don't think that given pay raises after having been successful in the primary to administrative people and then later realizing that you didn't have enough money to carry the boots on the ground is completely irresponsible. There's no reason whatsoever that the bloated administration at the sheriff's office should continue to receive pay raises while the deputies continue to suffer.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Morgan, you have a rebuttal statement, and you have 30 seconds to make that, sir.
That information Ms. Perret passed on is completely inaccurate. We're not a bloated administration. We have 2% sworn officers. When I took office, 55% were in administration. We're down now to less than 27. She confuses promotions with raises. I would dare say that any of our young officers that go from deputy to sergeant or sergeant to lieutenant would expect an adequate raise to go along with that. Why? Because that's a promotion, not a pay raise. I would put our books open to anyone. We do a line item budget, and I would put my agency up against any agency in the state of Florida.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, we're down to our sixth and final question for our candidates for sheriff, and it'll go to Ms. Perret first. What is the most pressing issue, the most urgent issue facing the sheriff's office in Escambia County, and what would you propose to do about it, Ms. Perret?
The most pressing issue at this point is to get anybody with a badge who works at the sheriff's office get them active in enforcing the laws in Escambia County. I don't believe it benefits the sheriff's office or the citizens of this community whatsoever to have a 15 to 30-year officer sitting behind a desk in an office making more money than 3 other deputies on the street. The sheriff can say all day long how inaccurate or incorrect or outdated my information is. The fact is that if you go down there, you'll see it for yourself.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Morgan, your response now. What do you think is the most urgent issue facing the sheriff's office, and what do you propose to do about it?
The most urgent issue we have, again, is a problem throughout the United States of America because we tend to trend across the nation in Escambia County. Again, the continued proliferation of drugs and gun violence, which we're addressing, that and gangs. While we have some very robust programs in place that are addressing those issues and we're making a considerable amount of progress, we believe with the continued unemployment and downturn in the economy, these issues will not be resolved quickly. Ergo, we fight for our budget, we fight for the training dollars that we need and we get, and yes, we do have folks that are 30 years in positions behind a desk, also working desk to roads. Why? Because those are seasoned officers that we put in supervisory positions.
All right, thank you.
And thank you, candidates. And now each of you has 45 seconds to make a closing statement.
Mr. Morgan, we began with you with the question-answer portion, and so we'll start the closing statement with you. Ms. Perret, you'll get the first response. 45 seconds.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank WSRE and the citizens who are watching the program for allowing me to come into their homes and share with them my thoughts and opinions and give me the opportunity to display myself so that way you would have the ability to make a good decision on who to vote for. Escambia County, you don't have to continue to put up with the things that are going on around here. You can make a change, and now's the time to make the change. I'm hoping that you will see it my way and decide to write me in as a candidate on November 6th.
And now your closing statement, Mr. Morgan. You too have 45 seconds.
Thanks to WSRE and the League of Women Voters. Honored to be here tonight. I'm Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan. Been your sheriff for the last 4 years in Escambia County. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, a master's degree in business administration, and have served, I think, successfully and honorably for the last 4 years. And we look forward to serving the next 4 years for the citizens of Escambia County. We've reduced our budget to 06 levels while again maintaining officers on the street, fielding 32 additional officers, even though my budget is at 06 levels. We will continue to do more of the same. We have the endorsement of the National Rifle Association, Florida Sportsman Association, Pensacola News Journal, Pensacola Realtors, just to name a few, firefighters, and also the Police Benevolent Association. We're very proud to be a member of this community. We're on the cusp of greatness. Let's keep the momentum.
All right, thank you, Mr. Morgan. And those were the candidates for sheriff in Escambia County.
In case you have just joined us, you are watching Rally 2012 on WSRE TV, where candidates from various races are receiving questions this evening pertinent to those races.
The Escambia County candidates' questions are provided to us by the League of Women Voters, Pensacola Bay Area. And the next race up for tonight is for Escambia County Property Appraiser. There are 2 candidates in this race. The first candidate to be introduced tonight is Charles M. Green. Mr. Green is the Republican candidate. He's opposed by Chris Jones, who is the Democratic incumbent candidate in this race. Let's get started with the questions, and we'll begin with you, Mr. Green. Question number 1. Please comment on whether or not the county property appraiser needs professional qualifications as well as professional appraisal experience to hold this position.
Yes, ma'am. That's an excellent question. I've researched that a lot before actually deciding to run. I've talked to a couple of people at the Florida Department of Revenue, and the requirement does not actually exist to actually hold a professional certification of property appraiser to run for this office. It's office held currently by a property appraiser, a certified property appraiser, but I'm looking at it more from a citizen point of, let's get out and let's get with the people, and then we've got the staff on staff that actually have the appraisal experience.
All right, that to you, Mr. Jones. Your comments on whether or not the county property appraiser needs professional qualifications as well as professional appraisal experience.
Well, I disagree. I think it is incumbent upon the appraiser to have those skills and ability and certifications, because that's what your constitutional duties are, is to appraise all property in the county for tax purposes. And speaking of the training of staff, the staff is trained by the appraiser. It's where the proverbial buck stops. And a taxpayer coming into the office wanting to talk to the property appraiser about their tax problem on their home or business would certainly want to stop with the elected property appraiser that they hired. If they don't have any appraisal certifications or experience, they're not going to be able to. They're going to have to take them down the hall to a staff member. And I don't think that's what the citizens of Escambia County want.
All right, thank you. Question number 2 now goes to Mr. Jones first. And proposed constitutional amendments 2, 4, 9, and 11 on the November 6 ballot will reduce property taxes of specific groups and reduce revenue for county government. What is your opinion of those proposals? And again, we will start with you first, Mr. Jones.
That's going to be difficult to answer in 45 seconds for those amendments. But to answer your question, I'm voting yes on all those. Sitting in the seat of property appraiser, I hear from thousands of homeowners, business owners, and these are results of those citizens going to their legislators and saying these are needs or wants that we want. They're going to be on the ballot. It does take 60% of the population voters to pass that. And I believe that these are something, these amendments, 2 especially, helps our veterans, and they're such a huge part of our society here in Escambia County.
All right, thank you, sir. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Green. Would you like for me to repeat it for you, sir?
Yes, please.
All right. Proposed constitutional amendments 2, 4, 9, and 11 on the November 6 ballot will reduce property taxes of specific groups and reduce revenue for county government. What is your opinion of these proposals?
I, too, am going to vote yes on all the amendments. The only one I had a little reservation about was number 4. I, like many citizens, when there's a multiple choice in the amendment, I have to read it twice. But after reviewing it in detail, the majority of it I agree with. So I will also be voting yes on all the property-related amendments.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, our next question will go to Mr. Green first. Please explain the current property appraisal system used by the appraiser's office. Would you change the system following the election? And if so, how?
Well, there we go with the 45-second limitation. That's about a 4 or 5 minute answer. I'll speak to what I would change, and then Mr. Jones can address how it's handled now. Basically, I would go to more of a sales-based approach where we'd compare what other like properties are selling for and make the assessments based on the sales approach versus what we're using today.
All right, Mr. Jones, to you. Would you change the system if you are elected following the election, and if so, how?
Well, we're rewriting our system right now currently. The system that we have now, by law, we have to look at 3 approaches to value: income, market, and cost. The current system does incorporate all 3 of those, but we're rewriting our system to leverage technology and save money. By rewriting this system, we will save the taxpayers of Escambia County over $140,000 a year.
All right, thank you.
And this question now begins with you, Mr. Jones. What training do you, did I jump in? What training do you consider to be the most important for staff members who interact with the public?
In a nutshell, common sense, but really what we employ in the property appraiser's office and our training and staff have a wonderful staff. They've had a great buy-in, and we have a mission statement, and we have 11 commandments of the public servant. We realize that we work for you, the taxpayer,
you are our boss, and we exist only because of you. I guess the most important asset is the golden rule. We want to treat people as we want to be treated, and that's what we try to instill in staff.
All right, thank you. And the question now to you, Mr. Green. What training do you consider to be the most important for staff members who interact with the public?
It's funny that Chris should say the golden rule, because I've lived by that. I believe that's the strongest basic rule that you can have in public interaction. It's probably our upbringing. We actually both attend the same church downtown. So I would have to say that's the number one. I mean, common sense always comes in. You don't always get that with everybody, unfortunately, but treat others as you would like to be treated. You know, swap places with them, and can you answer the question is, would they be happy, or would I be happy if I was in their position?
All right, thank you. Our next question will go to Mr. Green first. What are the major functions of the property appraiser's office, and how do you plan to carry out these functions?
The basic functions, that was my question, right?
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that. The basic functions are to locate, identify, and then appraise the property located within the county. I mean, locating it, that's pretty simple. And then the appraisal side, that's where I believe it's moving more to a dynamic IT-based side or an information technology-based side, because information is being able to be accessed more readily by everyone, including the appraiser's office.
All right, thank you. And to you, Mr. Jones, how do you plan to carry out the major functions of the property appraiser's office?
Well, what we're doing right now, because we live in such an economic times that we're living in, we're cross-training staff, and because of my experience in training, we're being able to cut the budget and be able to cross-train those staff to be able to put our resources where we're needed when times are of high need in those particular areas. But we have a $5.3 million budget. We have 160,000 parcels that we appraise annually. We have another 15,000 personal property accounts that we appraise annually. Tax rolls of about $25 billion with a taxable value of about $13.5 billion.
All right, thanks.
And question number 6, what is in your background that qualifies you to hold this position? And this question is posed first to candidate Mr. Jones.
Well, I'm a state certified real estate appraiser. I'm also a certified Florida appraiser. I hold a real estate license. I've been in the appraisal business for over 25 years, served as a property appraiser here in Escambia County the last 17 years, have experience managing multi-million-dollar budgets as well as multi-million-dollar projects when I worked for the Department of Transportation.
All right, thank you, sir. And the question now to you, Mr. Green. What in your background qualifies you to hold this position?
I come from the for-profit side of business. I've never really been involved in the local government organization before. We've interacted with it in my commercial business, and I believe that my interaction with my current commercial company with federal and state governments has allowed me the inside track to really see where a sitting public official might not be able to see the synergies and the possible cost savings that can be exercised.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, our final question this evening will go to Mr. Green first. And of course, we are talking to our candidates for Escambia County Property Appraiser. Mr. Green, what changes, if any, would you propose to make in the appraiser's office?
The main changes that this election or my campaign is focused on is the budget. And then you say, well, how can we get a smaller budget if that's what I'm running for? Well, there's going to be a set attrition of employees, as we all know that we've got a lot of long-term experience in the property appraiser's office. It's going to be retiring over the next 18 to 24 months. That'll allow those higher paid long-term employees to be replaced and backfilled with newer junior grade employees, which will save a significant amount of money.
All right, and to you, Mr. Jones, what changes would you make in the appraiser's office?
Well, as mentioned earlier, we're rewriting our appraisal system software package that's going to save taxpayers an additional $140,000 a year. We're going to continue to cross-train. We're going to be able to continue to leverage technology. We have a state-of-the-art website with digitized maps. We're always looking for better and more effective ways and efficient ways of doing business.
All right, thank you. That completes the question and answer session. And now each of our candidates, each of you, has 45 seconds to make a closing statement. And this time we will begin with you, Mr. Jones.
Well, I want to thank the League and WSRE for having this forum tonight. And especially I want to thank the citizens at home for allowing me. It's been an honor to serve as your property appraiser for the last 17 years. We've cut the budget over 30%. We've cut staff over 20%. We've continued to deliver the quality of service that the citizens have come accustomed to and deserve. Now, the property appraiser, he has a special set of skills that are required. I am a state certified real estate appraiser, a certified Florida appraiser, and a licensed realtor. Now, with your vote, you're going to hire somebody and trust this office to. Someone that understands your interests and can defend those interests. I ask for your vote for Chris Jones, November 6th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we go to you, Mr. Green, for your closing statement, and you too have 45 seconds, sir.
Thank you to WSRE and the League of Women Voters for inviting us here tonight. I'm Charles Green, your first Republican choice for the Property Appraiser's Office in 16 years. It is time to put a leash on spending and get our budget back in line while keeping assessments as low as legally possible. I urge you to visit Green4Property, that's green, the number 4property.com, and follow our link to our Facebook page where you too can find the independent sources for the topics discussed tonight. I ask for your vote. Charles Green, Republican, Semper Fi.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And that concludes our look at the race for Escambia County Property Appraiser.
But there are more candidates, more questions, and more answers straight ahead. Also, more information on the proposed constitutional amendments. Here's a look at the races that are just ahead.
I'm Rosemary Hayes Thomas, co-president of the League of Women Voters of the Pensacola Bay Area. On our November 6th ballot, there are 11 amendments to our state constitution, all placed on the ballot by the state legislature rather than by citizen initiative. A 60% margin is required for passage. Amendment 5 gives more power to the legislature by limiting the independence of the courts. Currently, the governor appoints each new Supreme Court justice from a list that's provided by a nominating commission that identifies and screens nominees. Amendment 5 would also require Senate confirmation of the governor's appointments and make it easier for the legislature to repeal the Supreme Court's rules of procedure. It would also give state representatives access to confidential files of judges accused of misconduct, which now are available only during impeachments. Amendment 6 would do two things. First, state and federal law currently prohibit the use of public funds for most abortions. This amendment would place this prohibition on use of public funding into the Constitution. Second, Amendment 6 would prevent the specific privacy clause in Florida's Constitution from being used in abortion cases only. Thus, more restrictive laws might be found constitutional in Florida. If the amendment does not pass, taxpayers' funds still could not be used to fund most abortions because of state and federal laws. If Amendment 8 passes, state funds could be used for religious activities. Florida's Constitution prohibits using taxpayer funds directly or indirectly to promote a single religion. Religious organizations may now use public funds for charitable activities which do not advocate for their religion. Amendment 8 would impact the school voucher program, which now does not cover religious schools. This amendment would permit state-funded vouchers to be used to attend schools run by any religion. For more detailed, nonpartisan information about the constitutional amendments and the merit retention process, please download the Florida League's Voter Guide. Just log on to thefloridavoter.org, the website for the League of Women Voters of Florida. Scroll down to the 2012 Voter Guide section and click on Download. In a few moments, the guide will appear on your computer screen. When you scroll down to the Amendment section, you will see a synopsis of each amendment plus an explanation of what a vote of yes or no would mean. We hope you will find this information useful as you prepare to vote.
And welcome back to Rally 2012 on WSRE TV, PBS for the Gulf Coast. We are hearing tonight from candidates on campaign issues.
We now begin the question and answer session with candidates for Escambia County Tax Collector.
The first candidate that we are going to introduce is the incumbent, Janet Holley. Ms. Holley is running on the Democratic ticket, and we say welcome to you.
Hi.
And seated next to Ms. Holley is Mike Whitehead, who is running on the Republican ticket. And Mr. Whitehead, we also would like to welcome you to Rally, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Candidates, you will have 45 seconds to respond to your questions. And then at the conclusion of the questions and answers, you will each have 45 seconds to make a closing statement. We will begin our questions with you, Ms. Holley. Our first question is, what improvements would you consider appropriate for security, accountability, and transparency in the tax collector's office?
We are fortunate that we have many layers of security in place. We have the public trust for their money, their tax dollars. We keep them on a short-term basis and then we distribute to the various taxing authorities. However, while that money's in our possession, we have many backup systems, layers of accounting for that money, making sure that it's safe and secure, that it's properly accounted for before we distribute that money. We also have great care with the driver license, title paper, so there's a lot going on that has to be kept very, very safe. It's a fiduciary responsibility that comes from the state, and it's in jeopardy of being stolen for sure, so we have to be very careful.
All right, to you now, Mr. Whitehead, what improvements would you consider appropriate for security, accountability, and transparency in the tax collector's office?
You've hit on three separate issues. With regard to security, as we move into a more electronic age, I think that the protection of the individual's information is going to be a paramount concern. With the driver's license coming to the local level, it raises a lot of issues about how we handle that locally and the funding in place to do it. Most people don't realize it, but we're losing approximately $10 on every driver's license that we issue, which is going to put a strain on the resources. With regard to transparency and things of that nature, we've got a number of constitutional officers that their budgets are completely transparent. You can click on it, you can look at it. There's a lot can be done there. With regard to the dollar side of things, making sure that we've got money in place and the financial controls, it's there now, it's going to continue.
All right, thank you. And our next question is going to be posed first to Mr. Whitehead. What qualities do you consider most important for staff members who interact with the public?
Well, I actually come from a public service arena and have been involved in retail both on the child care and on the adult side of business for the last 25 years. And you have to have a servant's heart. You absolutely have to be wanting to serve the public. Working with people every day is difficult. You're catching them sometimes at their worst moment. I've talked to ladies who have lost husbands and they're having trouble working their way through how to get IDs, and there's a lot going on there. I think the attitude is probably the single most important part. You've got to have training, but finding people who truly want to serve the public is the first and foremost quality for anyone working in government.
All right, thank you. And the question now goes to you, Ms. Holley. What qualities do you consider most important for staff members who interact with the public?
When I became tax collector, the first thing I did was ask the staff if they could cross-train and do everything that we do in the office to be more efficient, and they stepped up and did that. We learned very quickly how important the training had to be, but more important, it was to hire that right person. We could train them to do the job, but we couldn't train them to have the heart of compassion for the services they provide to the citizens. And it's been interesting to watch the most successful staff members who I have empowered to make decisions for the customers, and they take that to heart. And when you do have customers coming in who are in challenging situations, they really appreciate the extra sensitivity and perspective that they give them.
All right, thank you.
All right, and our next question will go to Ms. Holley first. With the expansion of the tax collector's responsibilities to issue individual driver's licenses, what problems should be addressed and what changes would you recommend?
I will have to say that in my entire career, the driver license transition from the state to the tax collectors has been the biggest challenge, yet I see it as possibly being our biggest success. What we have done, we've already raised the level so far above what the state did. When the legislature gave that responsibility to us, and in our case in Escambia, it was in March when the last state-run office closed, we assumed 100,000 transactions annually. We hired some additional personnel. We tried to keep our service level very similar to what the customers were expected to receive. So we've been very creative with how we provide that service. And further challenging was the Real ID Act, which is a federal delegation of law that came out of Homeland Security.
All right, and to you, Mr. Whitehead, with regard to the issuance of individual driver's licenses within the tax collector's office, what problems do you think should be addressed and what changes would you recommend?
Well, I think security of the personal information is probably paramount. That is the most important issue that we deal with. We've got to make sure that those files and that data are secure from hackers and people who would use it for issues and purposes that they shouldn't. The budgetary side of that is an issue that's not going to go away. We truly need in the tax collector's office a liaison with the legislature. The ability for them to force this unfunded mandate down onto the citizens of Escambia County is, I have a real difficult issue grasping how that could slide through. And we have got to work closely hand in hand with the legislature. We've got to make sure that guys like Don Gates know that this is not acceptable.
All right, thank you.
And now we move on to question number 4. And again, these questions are provided to us by the League of Women Voters. And the question is, what in your background qualifies you to hold this office? And we begin this time with you, Mr. Whitehead.
Well, I'm a graduate of UWF. I've got a degree in accounting and finance. I worked my way through the corporate structure at Sacred Heart Hospital for a number of years. I've managed budgets upwards of $600 million back in the 70s and 80s when that was truly a lot of money. Over the 12 years that I served on the Board of County Commissioners, I was pretty much accepted as the budget guru. I understand how budgeting works. I understand how to drive the tax rates down. We're sitting at the lowest tax rate that we've had in Escambia County since the 1970s, and I firmly believe that we can do more with less.
All right, thank you. And the question now goes to you, Ms. Holly. What in your background qualifies you to hold this office?
I actually started on the counter as a clerk typist in 1973. So I learned from the ground up. I spent 25 years as a staff member when I became tax collector, and I have served since 14 years. I think that perspective of starting from the counter and learning the entire operation, budgeting, helped me become a better tax collector. I visit all the offices. I am out with the public, visiting with customers, finding out what their needs are. So I have that ability of knowing the office so thoroughly and staying involved on a daily basis that I believe that's probably my greatest asset. I am a certified Florida collector, and I am a licensed realtor as well.
All right, thank you.
All right, our next question will go to Ms. Holly first. The tax collector's office has a wide variety of duties to carry out. What training would you recommend for staff to perform these duties effectively?
Well, we're fortunate to have a lot of training that's offered, and it's offered on several different levels. We deal with several state offices, the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, the Department of Revenue, Florida Fish and Wildlife, and they all offer training in their areas. So we definitely participate with that. We also have our Florida Tax Collectors Association. I served as president in 2005, 2006. We have our own training programs that we offer for our colleagues. And in addition to that, we have a certification program for staff, and then we have an internal training program, because that's one thing about the legislature. They're going to make changes every year, and we have to provide the training to help our staff adhere to those laws.
All right, thank you. And to you, Mr. Whitehead, what training would you recommend for staff to perform their duties effectively?
I think a proactive approach, focusing on internal training, is probably the most effective way to go. Florida Tax Collectors Association certainly provides training that's available, but I believe that the cross-training of employees, ensuring the security of data, and making the employees understand the ramifications of that, you're operating in an environment very similar to a bank, and I think that we have to approach it almost from that perspective. The information and the dollars that we're dealing with are very large sums, $600 million a year currently in deposits. So I believe that the training in-house is probably the most effective, most efficient way of accomplishing that.
Okay, thank you.
And now the next question, we will begin with you, Mr. Whitehead. What changes, if any, would you make in the tax collector's budget?
Great question. Most people aren't aware of it, but we're spending we're budgeting $400,000 a year to lease the two buildings, Navy Boulevard and W Street. Over the life of those leases, we're looking at $8 million spent, tax dollars, and we still won't own them. That is probably one of the first and foremost areas that we have to look at. Government should own, they should not lease. It just doesn't make sense. And working with the county commission to be able to secure the funding, allow them to build and construct the building is something that I feel very confident that I can do. The issue with regard to the driver's license, we've got to have somebody who can go sit down with Senator Gates and say, this isn't working, we've got to do something different. I think I can do that.
And the question now to you, Ms. Holly, what changes, if any, would you make in the tax collector's budget?
With the legislature, many unfunded mandates come down to the local level. It's just a fact of life. And we do work very, very closely with the legislature during the process. As far as the buildings, the county commission already owns 2 of the 4 tax collector buildings. And until this past year, the tax collector could not own a building. And we don't have the budget revenue to purchase a building. And by law, we're not allowed to borrow money to purchase a building. So what I have done is worked very closely with the board on, in the future, of purchasing these other 2 buildings. And when we did those leases more than 10 years ago, they were very, very good leases. And we're lucky to be in the locations we are because that's what the citizens demanded of us.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're up to our final question now for our candidates for tax collector. Ms. Holly, you'll get this question first. Current document requirements for persons applying for driver's licenses are very difficult for many applicants to meet. What recommendations would you make to address this problem?
Florida was one of the first states to adopt the federal real ID. We were very progressive about it, so we've been at it a longer time than a lot of states, about 2 years. What we recognized right away were the challenges, especially for women who've had multiple name changes through their lives. Men do have an easier time of that, proving their identity from birth, also Social Security and proof of residence. So when we recognized the issues, we approached and worked with the Department of Highway Safety and Homeland Security and created a waiver system. So we were able to give them feedback, say what wasn't working, and we were much successful in getting those waivers. So we can do that on a local level in the office as well as reach out to Tallahassee and be granted those waivers on behalf of our customers.
All right, and now to you, Mr. Whitehead. What recommendations would you make to address the problems associated with the difficulty for some to meet the applications or the requirements for driver's license?
Well, I think the biggest problem that I've heard, certainly after talking to a lot of folks over this campaign, has been showing up without having adequate documentation or the right pieces of documentation, and it's a communication issue. I was in there several weeks ago to get a driver's license renewed and did not have everything I needed. We should be able to go online and look at exactly what documents are needed. And for folks who aren't online, and I know it's hard to believe that in this day and age some folks truly aren't, when that renewal goes out, we need to make sure that that information is communicated clearly, concisely. It should not require more than one trip to that office.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Holly has requested a rebuttal. You have 30 seconds.
Yes. We have done a lot of communication with our customers as we recognize that right away. We do have the list of items on the website. We also put a flyer in the renewal notices. We've been working with the state. There have been commercials. There was actually a program called Gather, Go, Get. Gather your documents, go to a tax collector's office and get your documents. So there's a concerted effort. It's ongoing, and we will continue to enhance that communication so customers come in with the right documents in one trip.
All right, thank you. And thanks to our candidates, and now each of you will have 45 seconds to make a closing statement. Mr. Whitehead, this time we will begin with you.
Well, I need to thank the League of Women Voters and WSRE for providing this opportunity to speak to the taxpayers of Escambia County. I have been around for a while. I've served in a number of positions in this community and have been proud to do that. This race is not just about who's in office. It's about how we're going to do business in the future in Escambia County. It's about embracing technology. It's about being a good fiduciary with regard to your monies, with your time, and with your information especially. So as you think about who to vote for in the future, I would ask that you look at who over the past has demonstrated adequately that you know how to work with a budget. I can do more with less. I can be a good steward of your tax dollars, and I hope you'll vote for me.
All right, thank you. And now to you, Ms. Holly, for your closing statement in 45 seconds.
This race is not about a political party. It's about hiring the right person for the job. I have served as your tax collector for the past 14 years, and my staff and I are proud of the really good public service that we have provided to all of our customers. I have a proven record of accomplishment. You can go on my website at janetholly2012.com and take a look at the innovations, my community service, and my experience. Also, I have returned over $6 million in unspent budget revenue, and I've also distributed over $5 million in interest earned. Every penny has been accounted for in our annual independent audits. So I ask for your vote. Janet Holly, the best choice for tax collector.
All right, and thank you. And those were the candidates for Escambia County Tax Collector. And we are heading into the final stretch of tonight's rally program. Our final race, an explanation of the merit retention of judges, and another look at some of the amendments you will see on the ballot are straight ahead.
You're watching Rally 2012 on WSRE TV, PBS for the Gulf Coast.
There are 3 ways to cast a ballot in Escambia County: by mail, early voting, or at your precinct on Election Day. To vote by mail, contact the Escambia County Supervisor of Elections office. You can write, phone, fax, email, or log on to their website. Ballots must reach the Supervisor of Elections office by 7 p.m. on Election Day. Early voting takes place from Saturday, October 27th through Saturday, November 3rd at the 5 locations listed on your screen. Early voting times are 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. each day. On the day of the general election, Tuesday, November 6th, voting takes place at your polling location from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. You must vote in the precinct in which you live and are registered. To verify your precinct, log on to escambiavotes.com. Make sure you take along a photo and a signature ID with you.
Welcome back to Rally 2012 on WSRE TV. This is your opportunity to learn about the candidates and the issues that you will be voting on as we count down to the November 6th election.
We've met candidates, we've gotten information on the constitutional amendments that will be on the ballot, and we are also going to talk about the ballot item concerning merit retention of judges and justices.
Right now, it's time to get back to the candidates, and the race up now is for Superintendent of Schools in Escambia County. The first candidate to be introduced tonight is Claudia Brown Curry. She is the Democratic candidate. And the second candidate, sorry, Drexel.
The second candidate who is going to be receiving questions tonight is Malcolm Thomas, and Mr. Thomas is the incumbent and he is the Republican candidate. And we say welcome to both of you this evening.
In the interest of full disclosure, we do want to recognize that Ms. Brown Curry is a member of the WSRE TV Foundation Board of Directors. All right, beginning alphabetically, we will start with you, Ms. Brown Curry, with our questions. And question number 1 is, what is your opinion of proposed amendment number 8, known as religious freedom, which if passed would allow state funding for private religious institutions and schools?
I believe that there should be a separation of church and state, and if that bill is passed, it will do away with separation of church and state. I believe that the public dollars should go toward public facilities, institutions, and not private organizations or schools.
All right, thank you. And for you, Mr. Thomas, the same question, your opinion of proposed amendment number 8, known as religious freedom.
Public schools have been under duress the last few years with their budget. I believe Amendment 8 poses a direct threat to funding for public education. I'm personally going to be voting no for that. mainly because if there's a finite amount of money, what will happen is that amount of money would be divided to other private, in this case religious institutions. That means less money for public school. We're struggling as it is. We've had to cut $40 million over the past 4 years. We can't afford to cut more. So I think we should maintain the separation that we currently have and vote no on Amendment 8.
All right, thank you.
And now we move on to question number 2. A reminder that the questions this evening have been provided by the League of Women Voters, Pensacola Bay Area, and in some cases, Okaloosa County as well. Question number 2 and goes to you first, Mr. Thomas. How can the county schools best prepare for the National Core Standards, which will be required for high school graduation beginning in 2016?
We've already begun the process. We've started with early grades. This year we're beginning the professional development necessary for our teachers to prepare them. This is going to be a big issue. I support the Common Core initiative. 46 states across the United States have signed on. That means in a few years we'll have an assessment that will be universal across those 46 states. It's an assessment that's going to focus on relevant real-life application of skill. What I say to our teachers and our administrators a lot of times, if you want to know if a student can add and subtract, give them a checkbook. See if they can balance the checkbook. If they can do that, that really is an ultimate assessment of their ability to add and subtract. The Common Core is going to bring that kind of real-life assessment to the table, much more effective than what we have currently with the FCAT.
All right, thank you. And the question now goes to you, Ms. Brown-Curry. How can the county schools best prepare for the National Core Standards, which will be required for high school graduation beginning in 2016?
Thanks for that question. The Common Core Standards, they provide the scope and sequence as to what is being taught. The children can be more creative in their thinking and in their writing. But as a school district, we need to make sure that we provide the teachers with the resources that they need in order for them to succeed, and also make sure that the students have the foundation that they need so they can start the higher order thinking skills.
All right, thank you.
All right, our next question will go to Ms. Brown-Curry first. The ranking of education in the United States has dropped in comparison with other countries. Please comment on whether increases in the length of the school day, as well as additions to the 180-day school year, should be implemented to help raise standards of the U.S. education system.
First of all, I think we should look at the strategies and interventions and how we are teaching on a daily basis. By increasing the school day, if we're doing the same thing that we were doing the 7 hours the children were there, we're going to get the same result. So we need to go out and we research what best practices are best for our children so that they can succeed.
All right, and now to you, Mr. Thomas. Please comment on whether the increases in the length of the school day, as well as additions to the 180-day school year, should be implemented to help raise standards, education standards in the U.S.
When you look at the length of the school day in the United States school system, it's much shorter than what you see in other countries. That's one of the factors that's causing us to fall further and further behind with math and science internationally. We have an issue in our school district, particularly with the area of reading in early grades. That's why this year for 6 schools, we extended the day for 6 schools. And all of that time is devoted to additional time to teach reading, to apply more time. Teachers will tell you they're out of time. With all that's expected, we're expecting more of teachers and more of schools today than we've ever expected before. And it is a time proposition. Teachers need more time. We're hoping that as we get the results and measure, receive the data from what we're doing with our extended day program, it'll have positive results for students.
All right, thank you.
And now the next question. There are some studies that say that many students are graduating from high school without the academic skills to succeed in higher education or in the job market. What is your solution to address this problem prior to the students being permitted to graduate high school? And the question goes to you first, Mr. Thomas.
Well, first, you have to have a system of accountability. I'm certainly in favor of that. We've approached this problem by implementing career academies. When I took office 4 years ago, we had 13 career academies. We now have 61. What the career academies do, it allows students to find their niche. They can find an area that they're interested in, whether it's our flight academies, our television production, engineering academy. That's going to prepare the students for a career, maybe for a college degree. But what all students want when they exit school, they want to be able to get a job, and they need skills, and that's where the Career Academy approach is making a difference. They stay in school, they have a higher graduation rate, their GPAs are higher. It is showing great promise.
All right, thank you. And the question goes now to you, Ms. Brown-Curry. Would you like for me to repeat that question for you?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. There are studies that say that many students are graduating from high school without the academic skills to succeed in higher education or in the job market. What is your solution to address the problem prior to the students being allowed to graduate from high school?
Thank you for repeating the question. My solution would be all students, first of all students are not college bound. So we need to implement some vocational training for our students. We have plumbers, we have electricians out there, and they need to be given those skills while they're in school. And I was reading about another school district where the children declare a major in middle school, and they go on through high school. So when they graduate, they will graduate with a certificate. That's what I would do. I would make sure we have more vocational training, job skills for our children before they graduate from high school.
Thank you.
All right, candidates, we ask that you now please discuss whether FCAT scores of students be used to rate the effectiveness of teachers in the classroom. And to you first, Ms. Brown-Curry.
No, I strongly believe that FCAT scores should not be a way of grading the teachers. FCAT scores should be used as help drive the curriculum. It should help allow the teachers to know the strengths and the weaknesses of the children and not use it as a punitive method.
All right, thank you. And to you, Mr. Thomas, do you think FCAT scores should be used to rate the effectiveness of teachers in the classroom?
What you need for teacher effectiveness, you need a quality evaluation system. We implemented this last year. We used the Danielson model. It's a model that's going to differentiate. A couple of years ago, if you looked at teacher evaluations, you could not tell the difference between the teacher of the year and the lowest performing teacher in the school. Everyone had pretty much a satisfactory evaluation. That's changed. And that's not based on FCAT scores, that's based on the performance of the teacher and their ability to plan, to develop relationships, and instruct their students. I think there's been so many changes with the FCAT in the last couple of years. It is not in a position at this time that we should be using those scores to evaluate the teachers. I think there may be a moment where part of that could be included, but at this time I think the better measure is that quality evaluation system that measures what the teacher controls, their ability to plan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Tenure provides a lengthy process for the removal from the classroom of an ineffective teacher. Can you suggest an approach to reforming the tenure system? And we start with you, Mr. Thomas.
Well, the tenure system has already started to be reformed. The legislature removed it for new teachers a couple of years ago. If you're a new hired teacher, there's no tenure. You cannot get a professional service contract. What we have to do, we must have highly qualified teachers in our classrooms. That is probably the foundation of all education systems. 2 years ago, we started a mentoring program for our new teachers to make sure they're paired with a master teacher, to make sure they are prepared to continue their career. But each year they are renewed. It's going to be an annual contract.
All right, thank you. And to you, Ms. Brown-Curry, can you suggest an approach to reforming the tenure system?
I agree with Mr. Thomas. There is no tenure system with our teachers right now, but one thing we should make sure that the teachers have the support that they need in order to be successful, and that they receive the professional development that they need in order to be successful. And we do want highly qualified teachers in our county. And another thing I think we should do at the college level, all teachers should take extensive studies in counseling and in classroom management, because I'm seeing that a lot of our non-tenured teachers, they're struggling with classroom management. So they need extra time and studies to deal with that.
All right, thank you.
All right, our next question will go to Ms. Brown-Curry first. High school students are now required to take one online course before graduation. What is your opinion of using for-profit franchises as one option to provide this function?
For-profit?
For-profit franchises.
Well, one thing I think, I agree with the students taking the, using the computer, taking an online class. But for, did you say nonprofit?
No, for-profit. Businesses who are in the business to make money.
Oh no, I don't
to
agree.
have private businesses.
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think they should be in the classroom setting, taking those online courses.
All right, thank you. Do you need me to repeat the question, Mr. Thomas?
I understand it. Our approach with this is a requirement. It began last year with all incoming 9th grade students. There are two ways the district can meet that requirement. One, develop the coursework themselves, become a franchise with the Escambia Virtual, or go out and contract with a provider. We've chosen to become a franchise district for with the Escambia Virtual School. We also have bought software called Compass Learning, where students can receive that online curriculum and meet those requirements. It's a way to help us with students with courses that they may be interested in taking, but you may not have a sufficient number of students interested in taking Russian or Chinese at a particular school. They can also receive advanced courses, dual enrolled in advanced placement.
All right, thank you.
And thank you to both of our candidates. And now you each will have 45 seconds to deliver a closing statement. And we are going to begin with you, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting the forum this evening. The best way to predict what a person will do in the future is to examine their past. For the past 4 years, it's been my honor to serve as the superintendent for the Escambia County School District, serve the students and the taxpayers of this district. If you want to know what I'm going to do in the future, look at my past. Look at my record. I was Escambia County Teacher of the Year, finalist for Florida Teacher of the Year. 2011, I was honored to be selected as the Star Superintendent for the state of Florida. So what am I going to do in the future? I'm going to provide vision. I'm going to provide leadership. I'm going to be dedicated to the students of this district to make sure we continue on that journey to excellence. I would appreciate your vote November the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And now your closing statement in 45 seconds, Ms. Brown-Curry.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to be on the show tonight. I come to you with passion and vision. It's time for a change. It's time for new leadership. If we continue with the same belief system that we have, we will continue to get the same results. So please vote for Claudia Brown-Curry on November 6th.
Thank you. And those were the candidates for Escambia County Superintendent of Schools.
You're watching Rally 2012 on WSRE TV. We've met a number of candidates tonight, and we've taken a look at some of the constitutional amendments which are on the ballot. Another item on the ballot, Drexel, concerns merit retention of appellate judges and state Supreme Court justices. And many of you may be wondering what this is all about and how your vote makes a difference.
That's right. So we're going to try to answer some of these questions for you. First of all, in the mid-1970s, Florida voters approved a constitutional amendment requiring that the merit system rather than contested elections be used for all appellate judges. These judges and state Supreme Court justices are appointed to office by the governor.
You, the voters, determine whether they will remain on the bench. And every 6 years in nonpartisan elections, you are asked to vote yes or no on each judge or justice who is on the ballot.
So you may be wondering to yourself, what does my yes or no vote mean? Well, a yes vote means that you want the judge or justice to stay in office. A no vote means you want the judge or justice to be removed from office. And the majority vote decides.
This year, there are 3 state Supreme Court justices and 15 appeals court judges who will be voted on for merit retention.
And if you would like more information before you go to the polls to vote, you can find information on the judges and the justices' voting records and also see videos of them at work. And the way that you can do this is go online to www.floridabar.org/the votes in your court. And there are still 3 more amendments on the ballot that you need to know about before you head out to vote.
Here's Rosemary Hayes Thomas of the League of Women Voters, Pensacola Bay Area, with the information on those.
I'm Rosemary Hayes Thomas, co-president of the League of Women Voters of the Pensacola Bay Area. On our November 6th ballot, there are 11 amendments to our state constitution, all placed on the ballot by the state legislature rather than by citizen initiative. A 60% margin is required for passage. Amendment 1 started as an attempt to exempt Florida from the individual mandate in the Affordable Care Act. It was placed on the ballot before the Supreme Court decided that this individual mandate is constitutional. Passage or defeat of this amendment may now have no practical consequences. It is a way of speaking up in support of the new law or against it, and it would add language to our Constitution that could be found unconstitutional if a suit were brought. Amendment 3 would implement a new and much more restrictive formula for calculating Florida's revenue cap, the amount of money the state can collect. Revenue collections have never exceeded the cap that is calculated with the present formula. Amendment 10 concerns the tax paid on tangible personal property used to operate a business or to earn income. Currently, the first $25,000 of the value of these items is exempt from taxation. This amendment would double that exemption. Amendment 12 concerns student membership on the Board of Governors, the highest body overseeing our university system. Currently, the 12 Student Government Association presidents are members of the Florida Student Association, and that group's president sits on the BOG. This amendment would form a new council to which all universities must belong. The student representative to the Board of Governors would be chosen from this council, but the amendment does not specify how the student would be selected. For more detailed, nonpartisan information about the constitutional amendments and the merit retention process, please download the Florida League's Voter Guide. Just log on to thefloridavoter.org, the website for the League of Women Voters of Florida. Scroll down to the 2012 Voter Guide section and click on Download. In a few moments, the guide will appear on your computer screen. When you scroll down to the Amendments section, you will see a synopsis of each amendment plus an explanation of what a vote of yes or no would mean. We hope you will find this information useful as you prepare to vote.
There are 3 ways to cast a ballot in Santa Rosa County: by mail, early voting, or at your precinct on Election Day. To vote by mail, contact the Santa Rosa County Supervisor of Elections office by phone, mail, fax, or email. Ballots must reach the Supervisor of Elections office by 7 p.m. on Election Day. Early voting takes place from Saturday, October 27th through Saturday, November 3rd at the Santa Rosa Supervisor of Elections office in Milton and at the South Santa Rosa Service Center on Highway 98 in Gulf Breeze. Early voting hours each day are 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. On the day of the general election, Tuesday, November 6th, voting takes place from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. You must vote in the precinct in which you live and are registered, and be sure to bring photo and signature ID with you.
We have gotten a lot of information. We've heard from a lot of candidates this evening, a lot of questions and answers. We'd like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters, Pensacola Bay Area, and Okaloosa County for providing the questions for this evening. But that's just going to just about wrap it up for night 1 of Rally 2012. We're marching forward, Sandra, to Election Day, which is, of course, Tuesday, November 6th.
And of course, we have a full slate of races and candidates on tap for tomorrow night, as well as we cover races in Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa counties.
We will hear from candidates for Okaloosa County Commission, District 1, Santa Rosa County Sheriff, Santa Rosa County School Board, District 4, and then in Escambia County, candidates for Escambia County Commission seats in Districts 1, 3, and 5 will be in our studios, along with those who are seeking the ECUA District 1 seat.
We want to remind our listeners, Drexel, that if they missed a portion of the program tonight, that they'll be able to catch it on the website for WSRE TV.
And tonight's program should be uploaded for you on the website about this time tomorrow night. And then also the Friday night edition of Rally 2012 will be online for you to watch from now to Election Day as you make informed decisions as you head to the polls. But that's going to do it for now.
Our thanks to the League of Women Voters, Pensacola Bay Area, and Okaloosa County for providing the questions for our candidates tonight.
Rally 2012 will be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. I'm Drexel Gilbert along with Sandra Averhart, and we hope that you will join us again tomorrow evening.